shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
So today, we're going to start by going way back to Genesis. Are you ready? In the beginning. Bad joke, sorry. We're going to go a little bit further ahead in Genesis. We're going to start about in Genesis 37, because that's when the Israelites land in Egypt. Remember, Joseph's brothers have mayhem in mind. They sell Joseph out. Joseph lands in Egypt, and due to a drought, eventually the entire family lands in Egypt. But when the Israelites first arrive in Egypt, Joseph is second-hand man in the government. They are important people. They are in the middle of things. But as time goes along, the Egyptians become more and more concerned about how powerful these Israelites are. So the oppression begins on the Israelites. And before too long, they are actually enslaved by the Egyptians. And the Egyptians decide that's not good enough. Still, the Israelites continue to build up power. So then they decide that all male children of Israelites need to be destroyed. Moses is saved by his family. He's hidden. Pharaoh's daughter finds him, and Moses grows up in Pharaoh's household. Moses becomes an adult. He sees an Egyptian beating an Israelite. He kills the Egyptian, and he becomes a wanted man, so he flees to the desert. That's where God finds him. And God sends Moses back to Egypt to lead the people out of Egypt. And of course, we do that whole dance with all the nasty plagues, but eventually Moses leads the people out of Egypt. There they are in the wilderness. These are people who have been enslaved for years. They are people who need boundaries, who need rules, who need that structure. And so, the Ten Commandments. Now be very, very clear. They've already been saved. Moses, by God's hand, has already led them out of the land of Egypt. They have been saved, and then the boundaries arrive. The boundaries, the rules, the Ten Commandments to keep folks safe. Last night when I was headed to the ball game, we'd had a long day. I was clearly rummy, but headed to the ball game. And as I crossed the railroad tracks, trains, I noticed that there is a yield sign for traffic. That's a really good rule. Yield to trains. Certainly not going to make God love me anymore, but it's probably going to keep me safer if I listen to that good piece of advice. Jump ahead to Jesus. Today, the story we get is from the Gospel of St. John. Now, the story of Jesus running out the money changers and the animals, it appears in all 4 of the Gospels. But the interesting thing about it is, in the synoptics, Matthew, Mark, Luke, this event, Jesus going into the temple, Jesus running everybody out, happens at the very end of Jesus' ministry. It's as if though the synoptics are saying this was the straw that broke the camel's back. At this point, the Jews, the officials, are going to have no more to do with Jesus, who's even causing havoc in the middle of the temple. But in St. John, this event happens early, the very first of Jesus' ministry. So oftentimes theologians are willing to just throw St. John out. Clearly St. John is wrong, the synoptics are right, he got it out of order, whatever. But what if St. John has another purpose in mind? What if St. John wants to frame his entire gospel around Jesus talking about new wine for new wineskins? Jesus, in that act of clearing out the temple, telling us we can't keep the 10 Commandments. We don't keep the 10 Commandments. And those commandments aren't going to save us, nor will the sacrificial system save us. No matter how many sacrifices we do, burnt offerings, guilt offerings, it isn't going to buy us salvation. So at the very beginning of Jesus' ministry, Jesus is going through and running it out and say, it's not going to work, but let me tell you what is going to work. The Jews go, okay, give us a sign. Jesus says, I will destroy the temple, and in 3 days, I will rebuild it. Yeah, right. We've been building this thing for 46 years. You are crazy. Now, of course, Jesus wasn't talking about the building temple. Jesus was talking about himself. That he would die, and in 3 days he would return, having conquered sin, death, and the devil. That's crazy talk, you say. It's exactly what St. Paul says to us today. We can call it folly, we can call it foolishness, because we Greeks want reason. We Greeks want it all to work out and sound neat and tidy. We want to be able to wrap our brains around it. God is not there for us to wrap our brains around. And in fact, our whole faith isn't about our head and what we think and how we get it anyway. It's about relationship. God's so desiring to be in relationship with us that God sends his one and only Son to be among us. What better way to be in relationship than actually be hanging out as a human? Today, we get this whole business of destruction, and out of that destruction, rebirth. And it makes no sense to us. How can it be? Maybe that's even further reason to believe it's of God and not of us. But it's just too good to be true. There's a word for that. The word is grace. A gift that we haven't earned, that we don't deserve, and we can't pay for, but a gift that's been given to us nonetheless by Jesus' death and resurrection. But that gift requires that we, like Jesus, set our face towards Jerusalem and the cross. And so we continue this Lenten journey. Amen.
Well, this light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, I let my little light shine. Oh, Jesus gave me light, I'm gonna let it shine.